Tá aí. É.
Ele deve ficar sozinho, mas só se apertar.
Ele vai parar em 30.
20 ou 30. 20 ou 30. Parando.
Beleza. Você vem. Deixa eu ver se eu consigo falar com ele. Vou falar com ele.
Right. So I would like to welcome everyone on behalf of the ICTP-SAIFR community. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Eduardo Ponton, and I'm a professor at the ICTP-SAIFR. I've been here for almost 4 years, and so we have today a distinguished panel of speakers. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to start with the official opening by the rector of UNESCO, Julio Cezar, Durigan, and he's also a member of the ICTP-SAIFR steering committee. Please.
Bom dia a todos. Gostaria de dizer que é uma satisfação muito grande para a Unesp, para o ICTP-SAIFR, no aniversário de 5 anos, uma cerimônia tão significativa como essa. Obrigado pela presença de todos e declaro aberta esta sessão de comemoração, da abertura da comemoração de 5 anos do ICTP-SAIFR.
So we continue now with Fernando Quevedo, who is the director of the ICTP in Trieste and chair of the steering committee.
Thank you, Eduardo. Good morning, everybody. So it's actually a great pleasure for me to be here. Yeah, people say that this famous expression that dreams can come true, and I always hate that expression because I never remember my dreams. I usually have nightmares. But in this case, it's daydreaming, and we have been dreaming, many of us from Latin America, who had the opportunity to study abroad and get educated. We always dream to do something to pay back to our countries and to try to support science in Latin America. And I had also tried several times without success. And luckily, a few years ago, when I became the director of ICTP, we realized that Nathan and us had the same initiative, the same dream, that we wanted to have something to be created in Latin America. And so we decided to join efforts and to plan the creation of the center. I was very impressed by the support that we got from the rector Durigan, which is still here with us, which is very good. And immediately we signed an agreement between ICTP and UNESCO, and started working on that. We came and went to talk to FAPESPI, and we had a wonderful reception from Brito, who's also here, and gave us full support. And with that, we started this center, and it's a real pleasure to be here 5 years later or more to celebrate this event. This has been much more better than we ever imagined. In that sense, I'm very impressed, and for that I want to congratulate Nathan and Rogério, Eduardo, Pedro, and all the staff here that have been playing an important role in making this center as good as it is. So then I just say a few words about ICTP, and then they'll see the connection between the two institutions in the next few minutes. So you see our campus. You haven't been in Trieste. This is our campus there, and this is the guest house. There's a castle here. It's not ours, but and you can see it's nicely located. And we have been receiving many scientists, and many of you, I think, have been visitors of ICTP, and I welcome you to continue visiting. So I'll just go quickly to say what ICTP is. We always claim this successful model of international collaboration, being the first and leading global institution created during the Cold War to support science and research, mostly in developing countries. It was founded by Abdul Salam in 1964, in agreement with the IAEA and the Italian government, and since 1995 it's joined by a tripartite agreement with Italy, IAEA, and UNESCO, with most of the funds coming from the Italian government, 10% from IAEA, and UNESCO's 1.5 plus administration. So we are all UNESCO employees. This is a historical photograph. You can see the first scientific council meeting in Trieste in 1964. You may recognize Abdul Salam here. He's Paolo Budenich, who was the person who was the key person to bring ICTP to Trieste. And there are other names that you may recognize. There's the Vice Cup, the Mexican may see that here is Sandoval Vallarta, and of course Oppenheimer. This is many years later. This is the creation of ICTP-SAIFR, and we have some of the people who are already in the main here in the podium celebrating the opening of this center here at the Institute for Theoretical Physics in UNESCO. So you can see Brito, Juan Maldacena has been also a very key person for supporting us since the beginning. Rector Durigan, the head of the IFT, and the representative of the Brazilian Academy of Science, Jacopales, we just, if I understand, he just stepped down, and we have Luis Davidovich, who is present here. And you may even recognize some of the people sitting here. Say French Verdaemi, who was my deputy director at that time, and I can guess he is Matias Aldarriaga, who is a member of the Center. So, in contrast to the 1964 Scientific Council meeting, this is a standard scientific council meeting here a few years ago. There's another photograph. You can compare the difference of the two times. Of course, the other picture was black and white. Here, this one, they didn't have computers, so we have computers. We were not smoking as they were smoking. And I'm glad to say that we have a woman who's Marcela, with us that they didn't have. So things have changed in the meantime, but I'm trying to see that hopefully the two institutions will continue in parallel life. And you can see here Peter Goddard, who has been the key person to bring this scientific council at the level that we wanted, and we have become very close, collaborating with Peter all these years, and so we hope to count on his support for a long time. There's another photograph. I chose this one because I didn't see, Nathan doesn't like to appear in photographs, so I saw he's a key person. And so following the parallel, this is our celebration of our 50th anniversary a few years ago in ICTP. You may recognize David Gross giving us the keynote speech and saying some words of wisdom that I know you can read here, which is, I think, always very important and inspiration for us, and David is also here supporting the center. I wanted to show this picture, first of all, because people say that this is the photograph of Salam. People say it's the only time that Salam went to the city center in Trieste. And the other photograph that's here in the same event, the 50th anniversary, here with Nathan. That was the first time that Nathan wore a tie. And I decided to wear it at the same time myself because I was betting that Nathan didn't have another one, but I was proven wrong. Anyway, so for organization, ICTP is run by the steering committee. Now is Italian representative, Professor Svirner, UNESCO representative, Flavia Schegel, and IEA representative, Alda Malavasi, who actually happens to be from Brazil and has been very, very supportive. But also we have the scientific council, the same structure that we incorporated here in ICTP-SAIFR, and you recognize some of the key people. Luciano Maiani, who was the chairman of the scientific council, and he was the former president of Cezar, being very supportive. And I'm glad that Peter has been playing that role here. And then you can see some known faces. Carlos Aragão is here. Professor Alotti from Ghana, Bill Bialik from Princeton, Edouard Bessin from Paris, Ingrid Daubetier from North Carolina, which is from Belgium. El Fatih here from MIT, and he's also from South Africa. Renata Kalos from Russia and Stanford. Juan again. You can see Juan has been always supporting us in many ways. Professor Narasimha, top mathematician from India. Michele Paranello from Switzerland, Italian from Switzerland. Martin Rees, former president of the Royal Society. Valery Rukakov from Russia. Cyrus Sachs, the best matter scientist now in MIT on perimeter. Professor Ashok Sen, a role model for many of us from developing countries. Professor Soboyejo is a key person from science in Africa, and now a member of the United Nations Scientific Advisory Board. Professor Tian, a mathematician from Princeton and originally from China, and Kubro Baifa from Iran, a professor in Harvard. So this is to show you the variety that we have of people, different origins, different specialities, all top scientists, which is the important part, and representing different fields and different regions of the world. So ICTP, we do research, education, and outreach, and I will briefly tell you each of the three. Research, and that's to give you a guideline for ICTP-SAIFR. We started with high energy physics and cosmology and superconducting physics in the 60s. In the 70s, we moved to condensed matter, 80s mathematics, 90s applied physics and earth system physics, including climate change. And now we started a couple of years ago a new group, quantitative life sciences, which is starting to grow. In education, we have a diploma program for 1 year to bring up scientists out to the developing countries to apply for PhD programs in top universities. STEP, which is a sandwich PhD, is something that is becoming bigger in the last couple of years. And I encourage people here to suggest to their students to apply for this, because we offer a second supervisor in ICTP that can complement the supervision in the home country. We open a new research PhD program with Cezar and the University of Trieste, and masters in medical physics, high performance computing, and complex systems. So that was the education. And outreach, we always say that we fight the brain drain, trying to provide good conditions for scientists from developing countries. If they don't have them in their country, they can come to our place, and that's one of the schemes that we are trying to incorporate also here. We have many conferences and workshops that I will specify later on. A program with experimental physics called TRIL to bring scientists to laboratories in Italy, even though we are not an experimental entity. This is one of our main programs. An office for external activities that we support activities, and we have some of the important institutions international for supporting the science. In conferences, we started small, and now we have been going to the level of 60 activities, 60 conferences or schools at ICTP, and 20 that we organize abroad. That I think is good to compare. Now we started here at ICTP-SAIFR, I think the first year were 4 or so, and now I think it's the order of 10 with hundreds of visitors. So I think it's moving in the same direction. And the subjects you can see we cover many areas beyond what we actually do on our own researchers to expand knowledge in many other areas. The number of visitors, you can see for more than, since 1970, more than 130,000 have visited ICTP. This distribution over the continents, you can see it is very even in different regions. But the number I always emphasize is 188 different countries. So that's every single country has been represented or is represented yearly at ICTP. Important to always emphasize that many of our visitors are from Europe, because the level of our conference and activities is very high. So they come mostly supported by their own institutions, and we support the scientists from the developing countries. From Brazil, since we are here, this is the distribution of the visitors we have had in the last few years. It has been stable and more or less growing in the last, say, 6 to 7 years, almost 200 last year, and we are now keeping track of the number of female. And this is the number of activities we have supported worldwide. So you can see we are covering, as I said, the whole planet, which is, I think it's very good. It's a big challenge to cover many countries. These are some centers that we have been supporting in particular, and projects or networks in different regions. And of course, the highlight for us in the last few years is the creation of ICTP-SAIFR. And then we have others in progress, the Center of Chiapas in Mexico, that Arnulfo is here, and Arnulfo Cepeda is here as a director. We are trying to start one in Beijing, in China, with the Chinese Academy of Sciences. It's very approved. And the same thing with Rwanda, in the center in Kigali, in Rwanda, to promote science in those countries. And these 4 institutions have been already approved by UNESCO to be Category 2 institutes of UNESCO. That's the way to make official the affiliation with ICTP. And we are pending just the last signature, hopefully this year, of the government and UNESCO. UNESCO had approved it November last year. So, in summary, which I think is very important to emphasize, that we have what we call a holistic effect. ICTP support the scientists throughout the whole career, and that's very important. It's not just one event, it's not 1 year, it's the whole career. The student, the person can come as a diploma student, have a PhD or sandwich PhD with us, have a postdoc with us, participate in many of the conferences or schools or workshops with us, eventually become an associate and regular visitor to ICTP, organize conferences in the countries, and they even run affiliated centers and networks in the countries. So we keep a relationship through the whole life, and I think that's an important part of the success of the ICTP. Something that I always emphasize, because this is a term that's becoming very popular, science diplomacy, and we have been essentially at the essence of ICTP is doing science diplomacy, and this is a typical picture to represent Mohammed as a Palestinian student that was a student at ICTP and now is a researcher at CERN, surrounded by Israeli scientists at that time, all together at CERN working together, which is a good sign of what international cooperation of what science can do. And I finish with this. Congratulations to ICTP-SAIFR for this 5th anniversary. We hope the relationship keeps stronger and stronger with us. And from every single person at ICTP, scientists and staff, we are all saying congratulations to Nathan and everybody here for this extremely good 5 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fernando. So we continue now with Professor Carlos Enrique Brito Cruz, who is the Scientific Director of PESPI and also a member of the steering committee.
Good morning, Director Julio, Fernando, Nathan, Juan, Peter, Rogério, colleagues. I want to be brief here just to mark the satisfaction of the São Paulo Research Foundation in seeing the growth and the establishment of this initiative. 6 or 7 years ago, 6 or 7, 6, around that. 6 years ago, Fernando and Nathan came to FAPESP with an idea. And an idea that I liked a lot when they showed it to me, having ICTP, UNESCO, State University of São Paulo, and FAPESP work together to create a center that would be a relevant hub for theoretical science, internationally speaking. So it was a very nice and interesting idea. But you know, at the São Paulo Research Foundation, it's not enough for the science director to like an idea. You have to convince reviewers. And the reviewers, as anywhere in the world, they tend to shy away from different things, from whatever was normal that they have been seeing for the last 10 years. So I explained that to them, and Nathan did a great work in preparing a proposal and in fighting for its approval. It was not approved the first time, it was approved in the second or third, or after several discussions and conversations and so on. And I was kind of relieved when it was approved, because I wanted it to be approved, but I could not approve it myself. But anyway, the reviewers in the end understood the relevance of the initiative, the grant was approved, and we have seen very, very nice results and interesting scientific results, international collaboration results in those 5 years, in the last 5 years. Of course, the initiative fits with one of FAPESP's strategies, which is that of enhancing the international research collaboration in the state of São Paulo, so that we would like to have the state of São Paulo be a relevant hub for international science in the world. And this center is an example of this kind of initiative, and they obtained this 5-year grant, which ended a month ago, I guess, or it will end at some point. Then, last year, Nathan submitted another grant for the next 5 years. And this time it was much easier. The reviewers already understood the idea, because of course it was not a new idea for them anymore. Right? It was an idea they had seen before. So it makes life easier. And it was approved in the first pass. We just 2 or 3 weeks ago announced it to Nathan. I think he already signed the grant. It's a substantial grant, like 16 million reais, around $5 million for the next 5 years of the center. And we are looking forward to seeing new developments, new interactions, new schools being organized. And we are really very, very happy to see this collaboration between the São Paulo Research Foundation, the State University of São Paulo, UNESCO, and ICTP bear fruit on behalf of the science and technology development in the state of São Paulo. So congratulations, Nathan. Congratulations, Fernando. Thank you.
Thank you. We continue with Professor Juan Maldacena from the Institute for Advanced Studies, member of the steering committee, and he is also representing the other countries of South America.
So this institute from the beginning was viewed as a regional center, so a center where people from neighboring countries could come. And as you probably all know, advanced research can be a lonely enterprise. Maybe there are a few people in the world working on this project, this particular topic you're working on. And it's a pity when you have a person in Argentina, a person in Brazil, and they can talk to each other. So this institute brings collaboration for neighboring countries, makes it possible. Because the number of ideas doesn't grow like the number of researchers, but it grows like a higher power, so it grows maybe like the number of researchers squared, because they can talk to each other. But for that, to have that multiplication factor, we really need to bring people together. And this is something where both Brazil and other countries benefit. And it's really working in this way. So that was the original idea, but indeed it's working in this way. There have been many visits by people from neighboring countries, both visits to schools, people who came as students, organizers for activities were often from neighboring countries, and also people who came here for long-term visits from all other Latin American countries. And certainly the visibility of the Institute has increased worldwide and also certainly in the region. And the idea is being imitated. There are similar institutes in the works, as you heard from Fernando, both the one he mentioned in Chiapas and also one in Argentina. And as they say, imitation is the best form of flattery. So this is a sign that this institute is working very well. And I think it will continue to work in the future, and I hope that this aspect of regional collaboration really continues to flourish, and we can recreate what exists. Maybe similar centers exist in, of course, US, Europe and Asia, where people come together and they benefit the whole research communities in the neighboring countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. We have now the intervention of Professor Peter Goddard, former director of the Institute for Advanced Study, chair of the Scientific Council and Search Committee.
It's a really great pleasure to take part in this celebration of the 5th anniversary of the establishing of ICTP, South American Institute for Fundamental Research, and more particularly to be able to celebrate remarkable achievements and progress already made by the Institute, achievements that I've been privileged to observe at close hand as the chair of its Scientific Council, which provides advice to the Director and Steering Committee on the scientific programme of the Institute. I think we should all congratulate ICTP, FAPES, UNESCO, IFT, and in particular Fernando, Brito, Nathan, Rogério, and their colleagues for their vision, dedication, and hard work. In 5 years, the Institute has recruited internationally outstanding physicists to its faculty against worldwide competition. Organised in the last year alone, at least 7 international graduate schools on diverse subjects, including mathematical biology, climate modelling, effective field theory, string theory, dark matter, and plasma physics. And in 2016, attracted as visitors to Sao Paulo about 240 scientists from around the world. And that reminds me that we should also congratulate the administrative staff, Jandira, Nadia, Lydia, and Lucas, because especially at an institute in which so many visitors play a central role, they are an essential part of its success and in communicating its ethos. Through all this, an gesture for establishing such an institute was made just 100 years ago in a book, The Higher Learning in America, remarkable book written by the sociologist and economist Thorsten Veblen, the man who coined the phrase conspicuous consumption. In this prescient book, published in 1918, he proposed the installation of a freely endowed central establishment where teachers and students of all nationalities may pursue their chosen work. And he added that there should also be nothing to hinder the installation of more than one of these houses of refuge and entertainment. I always thought that was a rather nice phrase for an international research institute. Arguably, the first realization of Veblen's suggestion, perhaps partly inspired by it, was the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, where I now work, which was established in 1930. The founding director of the Institute, Abraham Flexner, the person who was really responsible for its conception, articulated this conception as follows. The Institute should be a haven where scholars and scientists would not be carried off in the maelstrom of the immediate. Simple, comfortable, quiet without being monastic or remote, afraid of no issue, under no pressure from any side, which might tend to force its scholars to be prejudiced either for or against any particular solution of the problems under study. It should provide the facilities, the tranquility, the time requisite for fundamental inquiry into the unknown. Its scholars should enjoy complete intellectual liberty and be absolutely free from administrative responsibilities or concerns. Well, 30 years on, at the end of the 1950s, the third director of the Institute, Robert Oppenheimer, who you've seen was closely involved in the development of ICTP, developed Flexner's argument as follows. With the increasing magnitude, complexity and busyness of scientific progress in all fields, and with the great growth of university systems and new development in the world's history, university chairs no longer offer that opportunity for seclusion and for the most difficult and intensive intellectual effort, which was once their special hallmark. For this reasons, places of retreat, which are, in effect, places for advance, have been brought into being. These serve multiple functions, but basic to them all is an opportunity for much more intensive concentration on study and research than is possible elsewhere. For these reasons, institutes for advanced study will multiply throughout the world. Oppenheimer's prediction has proved correct. There are now literally hundreds of such institutes around the world, and they continue to be established at a high rate. I've had an opportunity to observe many of these in close quarters as a member of advisory or visiting committees or governing bodies. I truly have not seen another one that has achieved so much so quickly from a standing start as ICTP-SAIFR. As David Gross emphasized yesterday, nature is a lot more imaginative than we are. So it's vital that scientists are given opportunities to go where their curiosity leads them, following nature's clues. In many countries, increasingly, funding agencies require research projects to have predetermined objectives and outcomes and demonstrable short-term utility. It's been very refreshing for me to see how FAPES has been willing to provide the resources for curiosity-driven research that are essential for the creation of this institute. The institutes that are successful achieve their success because they provide opportunities for academics to pursue curiosity-driven research away from the usual intense pressures of the modern university, and because they are international in the increasingly international world of academic research. The success of SAIFR is in this intensely competitive international environment is good for Sao Paulo, it's good for Brazil, it's good for South America, and it's very good for the whole international physics community. So congratulations again on this remarkable beginning.
Thank you, Peter. Our next speaker is Professor Rogério Rosenfeld, Director of the Instituto de Física Teórica at UNESP and Vice Director of the ICTP-SAIFR.
Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you all for coming here for this ceremony. I'd like to welcome you all to the campus of the State University of São Paulo in the city of São Paulo. We have two buildings here. This is the building of the Arts Institute, this nice auditorium, this nice theater. I want to thank the director of the Arts Institute, Valerie Albright, here for the...
I just want to steal a brief word.
You can come here. We're very formal.
I just want to welcome everyone here. I wasn't going to say anything until I discovered that I was going to be able to speak English, and then that changed everything, but I promise I will be brief. And it's very nice to be able to share this moment with our neighbors. We are quite disparate in our objectives. However, I think this will be the start of a wonderful relationship in events. So everyone have a great time, and I hope you enjoy yourselves here.
I'll not say much about our university. I think Professor Durigan, our president, will say much more about it. So it's a very large university, and we are spread in the state of São Paulo. There are 26 campi, different fields. And in São Paulo, it's just the Arts Institute and us. We're very good neighbors, and we get along very well. So I will wear my hat as director of the Institute of Theoretical Physics, and we say just a few words about who we are, and what we are doing. So this is, you probably don't recognize this, most of you don't know, but if you're staying at the Universe Hotel, this is just next door. This is the old house where the Institute started its activities in 1952, and as a part of the foundation. I'll say a little bit more about this later. And then we moved to this new building that UNESCO built for us in 2009, together with the building for the Arts Institute. So a brief history of the IFT. The research activities began in 1952, and it was a part of a private foundation. So there was a private foundation called the Fundação Instituto de Física Teórica, and that was set up in order to promote research in the field of theoretical physics. The graduate program of the Instituto de Física Teórica started in 1973, so the research activities in 1952. The graduate program started in 1973, and in the 80s there was a problem of financing the institute, and it was about to close its doors, basically lack of funding. And UNESCO came to our rescue and incorporated the researchers of IFT into its professors' list. So we all became members of UNESCO. I was not here in 1987. I arrived in 1995. But our graduate program and our researchers were incorporated by the university in 1987, and there's an agreement that was signed 1987 between the university and the foundation, so that the foundation would house the institute. And that what happened until 2009, when we moved to this new headquarters here. And we're very proud to host ICTP-SAIFR in one floor of basically one floor of our building since 2011. So the institute, as I said, started more than 60 years ago now. And in the first period, let's say, of its existence, we invited scientific directors from abroad. So Carl von Weizsäcker, for instance, was one of the first directors of the institute. We had a phase where German scientists came to conduct and direct the research that was done here. So Emma and Make came afterwards. Then there were some Japanese physicists that came to the institute also. I think its first Brazilian scientific director was only in the 70s. So in a nutshell, the institute has 18 faculty. We're very small. That includes, of course, the faculty that comes from ICTP-SAIFR, because all the members, permanent members of ICTP-SAIFR are members of IFT. They're hired by the university. They're university professors. We have 60 permanent staff. We have top-ranked graduate program in Brazil. We have 24 master's students, 45 PhD students, almost a third from outside Brazil. 28 postdoctoral fellows, mostly financed from FAPESP, also mostly outside Brazil, 2 young research FAPESP fellows. So we have a large scientific output. This numbers from 2014. We also have some outreach activities. So this is one of the oldest outreach activities I know of in Brazil. It has in the 16th straight year. We have 6 talks each semester, and actually produced a book back, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe, that was published for outreach. We also have this a very traditional program since 1986 for undergrad students, physics majors, which we call Jornada de Física Teórica. And this was upgraded this year. I'm sure Nathan will talk more about this. So in collaboration with SAIFR and the Perimeter Institute, this has been upgraded to something called Journeys into Theoretical Physics, which is selecting students to do their masters in conjunction with Perimeter. But Nathan will talk more about this. So this is the activity of the Journeys into Theoretical Physics that started this year. So you see some students here. We also, the students of IFT themselves, they organize a small workshop which is called the Congresso Paulo Leal Ferreira. So Paulo Leal Ferreira was one of the founders of the foundation that started our institute. And this congress is named in his honor. And this also happens every year, and is totally run by students. We also have a master class that's organized, so the Cezar master class for high school students is organized by one of our professors, and has support from the computational group working, the high-energy group working at Cezar. So what is the future? Well, our main goal is to keep and increase our excellence, international visibility, attract the best talents to join and help us in our activities. And I have to say that the creation of ICTP-SAIFR for me was like a phase transition institute. We can really feel the difference. Things changed very quickly. These 5 years have been amazing in terms of visitors, seminars, activities. It has really changed the way we live in the institute. So ICTP-SAIFR has been a fundamental symbiotic. We are really a symbiotic partners in this endeavor. So I really thank ICTP-SAIFR for helping us to achieve our goals at IFT. Thank you.
Thank you, Rogério. We continue with Professor Nathan Berkovits, Director of the ICTP-SAIFR.
So let me start by thanking you all for coming, so especially the people on this panel, and also, of course, we had a whole series of lectures yesterday, so thank the public lecturers and, of course, the audience. There's one person who I want to thank before I forget. So this actually started after Fernando made the offer of trying to build something here. Professor Durigan was not yet rector, he was vice rector, and the rector was Herman Verlinde. I confused this with the physicist. Herman Verlinde. So I don't think he's here, but when me and Rogério, I had no experience with UNESCO administration before this period. I was a physicist and doing physics and being happy to do physics. And after Fernando made this suggestion, Rogério says, we have to do this. So we went together to the rector, and I was expecting him to say, well, we'll think about it, we'll form a committee, his response was, what do you need in order to do it? So he just said, we're going to do this, and okay, with that response, there was no way to get out of it, so we had to go forward. So the next step was, of course, to try to get funding from FAPESP, and again, the same response was, it's a great idea, we're going to do it. So now I'm stuck. Now we have to do it. So then the next step was, of course, getting Peter Goddard involved. So Peter Goddard, fortunately, was visiting Brazil for a meeting in Campinas, and I remember we were at the airport together, and I reluctantly asked him if he would have the time to do it. And fortunately, not for him, but for us, he was finishing his period in Princeton, so he knew he would have time, but we didn't know that. And fortunately, he agreed. And since then, there's really nothing to do, just follow their advice. So that's essentially what I've been doing for the last 5 years, and because that's why things are working. Okay, so that's how things got started. But now, of course, once things got started, in order to things to function, as was already mentioned by Peter, you need people to make things happen, and that's, of course, the people. These people here, there were some people. I guess Danilo Rodriguez was working with us before, but these are the people, of course, who, of course, there's the whole IFT staff, but these are the people, of course, which all of you have interacted with and are making the things work. Okay, so, of course, we'll thank them at the end, but if you want, you can thank them now also. So for this activity, we also have several master's and PhD students who are helping out and wearing T-shirts. And of course, they're also helping out for this symposium. Okay, so what is the motivation for creating an institute of this type, a theoretical physics institute? So most of the people in the audience are theoretical physicists, so I don't have to say the importance of doing theoretical physics. But these institutes, at least in South America, they have a crucial role, because if you want to organize in South America and you don't have such a structure, you have to do everything yourself. You have to invite, you have to organize, you have to sign the checks, you have to do the accounting afterwards, and you can't do research if you're doing it. So it's crucial that you have an institute which can centralize and reduce all this bureaucracy. So this is something, of course, well known outside of South America, but it's not so well known in South America. So there were a few institutes in South America that are doing this, but I think at this scale, there's one in Natal that should be mentioned, that Álvaro Ferraz, the director, is here. There's, of course, one in Chile, it is going well. And there's several others, but I think at this scale, at the moment, South America, of course, the biggest city in South America is São Paulo, so we have that advantage. Okay, so of course South America, as you all know, has a few countries where research is very well developed, so Brazil, Argentina, Chile. There are other countries which have excellent undergraduates, so in fact the educational system is excellent, but for some reason they have not gone into at least fundamental physics research. So we could play a role similar to ICTP for the continent of South America, in the sense of using the developed countries to help out the less developed countries as far as research is concerned. Of course, internationalization is very important, and there are barriers in South America for internationalization, just because it's not just bureaucracy, everything is done nationally. So of course, because Brazil, the language is Portuguese, there's some resistance to involving people who don't speak Portuguese. And okay, that's an obstacle if you want to really have an international, asking Brazilians how you should internationalize. Of course, they have ideas, but it's not the same ideas as people from outside who can see maybe some things are not going as well as they should be, and they know how to fix it. Okay, so that's another role that, of course, this institute can play. And of course, South America, as Fernando already mentioned, is the dream. But in at least one case, in mathematics, this dream has already been fulfilled. So we have this model of IMPA in Rio de Janeiro, Instituto de Matemática Pura Aplicada, that we can use the model. I think in some sense they have already succeeded. They already have Fields medalists that have come out of the institute. And okay, there's no Nobel Prize yet from physics in Latin America, and hopefully, eventually we will get there. Okay, so that's the motivation. So why here? Why not someplace else? So as Rogério already mentioned, IFT UNESP is one of the oldest graduate schools. As you'll see, it preceded ICTP. It's 1952. It has a small number of professors, and because it does not have undergraduates, so it has masters and PhD students. And of course, it's located in the state of São Paulo, so we have the advantage of FAPESP. So of course, you've already heard Professor Brito Cruz, but FAPESP, maybe you don't know it, since I came here 22 years ago. If you have a good project, it's accepted by FAPESP. So I wasn't worried. Once I was convinced that we had to do it, I wasn't worried about getting support, just because in the past I've done research, and when you have a good project, it's approved. Okay, so another advantage, of course, I already mentioned, we're in São Paulo. São Paulo is the biggest city in South America, and of course, there are several excellent universities here, not just UNESP, but also USP, the University of São Paulo, there's Unicamp, now there's a new university, Universidade Federal do ABC. So there's several pools of talent that you can use. You don't have to rely on just the professors of IFT. You have this whole pool of talent. And as was already mentioned, the original building was actually near the financial section where your hotel is. And it's being restored now, and perhaps in the future we can also use it to host activities. So we have all these potential to really build something really nice here. Okay, so this is a slide that, so I should have mentioned at the beginning, people might be surprised I have a tie, but if you've seen a talk I've given before, you should be surprised by the transparencies, because these are not my creations. So we have Pedro Vieira here, so you'll hear more from him tomorrow, but he's the one who designed all these transparencies. Okay, so this is the beginning of IFT, 1952. This is the beginning of FAPES, 1962, beginning of ICTP, 1964, and beginning of UNESP in 1976. So you can see IFT has actually precedes these. Okay, so in 1987, as Rogério already mentioned, there was some financial troubles, so IFT was incorporated into UNESP. So we stayed on the land of this old building, but of course the university incorporated all the researchers. Okay, now something else was formed in '94 that we'll get to later is the Simons Foundation. It was a private foundation started by a mathematician at Stony Brook in the United States, which is now outside of, so of course there are national science foundations in the United States, but they fund basic research. It's a private foundation that funds basic research. Okay, now this other institute in Canada we'll hear more about also tomorrow, Perimeter Institute. This was formed in 1999, so this is actually also a very recent institute. As was already mentioned, we moved to the new building in 2009. Okay, so now we've gotten to 2009, so this is all prehistory. In 2009, as Fernando mentioned, actually Fernando was actually in this picture also. This was not 1987, this is a picture of a school we organized here in 2003, a Latin American string school, where actually I remember talking to Fernando about, this was before he was, of course, the director of ICTP, you're talking about trying to create some kind of institute in South America. Okay, so as was already mentioned, Fernando and the vice director, SAIFR by Diami, who's also on our scientific council, they had this idea of creating these partner institutes, and they suggested it to me, and I said, of course, well, it sounds like a good idea, but I need to speak to the people in São Paulo. And as I already mentioned, after speaking to them, there was no way to back out, so we had to do it. Okay, so soon after, because of this rapid acceptance, we already signed the MOU the same year. So Professor Durigan went to Trieste. This was the 45th anniversary of ICTP, and we had the signing of the MOU between UNESP and ICTP. And then in, I think this was June of 2011, we had the first meeting of the steering committee. So this was in Foz do Iguaçu at the meeting of the Brazilian Physical Society. So they had, every 5 or 6 years, they get all the physicists together to a place, well, there was another one held this year, but this was held in Foz do Iguaçu. And Juan happened to be there, and Fernando was there, and I can't see who else. I think this was the president of the Brazilian Physical Society at the time. Okay, then, as Brito mentioned, the first grant, I don't think I wasn't as worried as Brito was that it would get approved. So it got approved. This was end of November 2011, and this is, of course, one of the schools we organized. Then we had the official inauguration, where maybe some of you were there, in February 2012. Okay, then I already mentioned the Simons Foundation. We were able to get a donation from them to establish these tenure-track chairs. So these tenure-track chairs are in collaboration with the FAPEP's Young Investigator Fellowship, and the two first occupants of these chairs are Rafael Porto and Fabio Yoko, who are here. Then in 2015, we were able to attract Pedro Vieira, and with him we were able to attract Perimeter Institute. So as you'll hear tomorrow, this institute here is very interested in playing an international role. And in fact, Tuesday we'll have a ceremony involving the Canadian ambassador. So I think that's really something for the next 5 years that we can really make advantage of using ICTP and Perimeter together to really create something really unique. Okay, so as I was already mentioned, the second FAPES grant was just granted, and now we'll see from ideas from you what the next project is. Okay, so this was I think maybe you've already seen these pictures. This was the scientific council meeting. So you can see we actually have two women, but all different kinds of people. So this is of course Belita Coelho, who is the president of the Brazilian Physical Society. This is essentially the members of the steering committee at the time of the opening ceremony. This is Juan Monteiro, who was the first the director at the time of IFT. Now it's Rogério. And this is of course Jaco Paulus, who was the president of the Brazilian Academy of Science. Funding sources, I think it's already clear what I'll say and I'll repeat it. So we have funding from UNESP. So UNESP funds, of course, the 5 permanent research professor positions, which were promised to us, which are, of course, in collaboration with IFT. They will be also professors of IFT. 2 have been filled. Of course, Eduardo, who's the chair of this session, and Pedro Vieira, who helped me with transparency, and you'll hear much more from him tomorrow. 4 staff members, who you already saw the pictures of. The infrastructure, of course, of IFT. So this is all, of course, supplied by the university. Then FAPESP, it's a 5-year grant which we just renewed until the end of 2021. This new grant has 12 postdoctoral positions, so none of these are filled. So if you know candidates, please tell them about us and they can apply, of course. There are 3 young investigator positions that we have currently, and of course we will try to get young investigator people to come in the next period. FAPESP funds money for visitors, activities, schools, workshops. This symposium, for example, is funded essentially by FAPESP. Fellowships in the next grant, in addition to these funding for activities and visitors, now includes scientific journalism. So we will hire somebody, you'll hear more about this later, not just to write articles, but also to help translate material from English to Portuguese. And we also get support for our videos. The public lectures yesterday were transmitted online and live on YouTube, and we want to build a whole library of these videos. And also for PhD fellowships. ICTP, of course, they provide all of the organizational support, but also funding for visitors from other South American countries. Our secretaries go there. They have a training set up for secretaries, which will go learn everything from the ICTP secretaries. And we organize several joint schools and workshops with them. Okay, now as I already mentioned, Perimeter Institute, we have a new MOU with Perimeter Institute, which involves this joint faculty position, who's Pedro Vieira. We also have this joint school, which was already mentioned by Rogério, this Chinese school. Together with this school, the best students are invited to a joint master's program. Perimeter has one of the most famous, it's a 1-year program, but it's essentially a program where they learn about all different areas of physics, and I think it's very difficult to get into this program, and fortunately they allowed us to have the 5 best students in this school to go into this program every year. And of course we have several joint outreach activities that Pedro will talk about later. Simon's Foundation, I already mentioned these 2 tenure track positions. We also were able to obtain a private donation from an ex-student in Brazil who established this chair. It's not the full funding of a position, but it's a salary bonus. So of course one thing, although the salaries here are not bad, depending on the exchange rate, they can be either competitive or not competitive, and these chairs will of course help to make them competitive internationally. We have master's and PhD fellowships, of course, from the national funding agencies, like all universities in Brazil. And we have exchange agreements with several physics institutes around the world. So the director of Mains happens to be here, Matheus Newbert, and last week the director of the Mains University was here to sign this agreement. So we have these agreements. So that's essentially the source of the funding up to now. Research, we perform research, so we have a limited number of faculty, so we can't do research in every area, but of course, as Fernando mentioned in the start of ICTP, they also do not do research in every area. So these are the areas, city of São Paulo, which is in the middle of the state of São Paulo, and there are many other researchers at nearby universities that are collaborating with us. So these are people, FAPESP has this position called Associated Researcher on the grant. So these are the associated researchers on the new grant. So you see they're in all different areas, probably recognize many of the names. Some are at IFT, some are at USP, some are from Unicampi, so they're from all over. And in addition, of course, we have you and the associate members who aren't able to come, so they come from all different states in Brazil and South American countries. Okay, so one way to point out success, not in my field because they don't publish my kind of article in Nature, but at least Science is this magazine Nature, and they had this article this year called Rising Stars. So they were trying to analyze the institutes, not necessarily universities, in all over the world which are improving. So they took, at least in high quality research. So they took some factors, I don't know the formula they used, but they got some numbers for how people were doing in 2012 and how people were doing in 2015, and they just computed something. And I don't put much emphasis in these rankings until you get to first place, and then of course, then you can. So we were ranked first for some number that I don't know. They don't say how the number comes from. But okay, so you can see that they had a little story about why we were ranked first, and they emphasized, so this is the university, this is not IFT or ICTP-SAIFR, but they have this sentence, the university's research strengths are in physics and astronomy, and that's essentially us. So they mentioned IFT and us also. So this is something that is good when you go to funding agencies. Okay, so activities. So some of the activities were already mentioned. We have maybe 600 students, 300 researchers every year. So all kinds of activities. The main activity, so these things I will talk more about tomorrow at the end of the session. So explicitly what activities we do and what activities you want us to do. So at the moment we have these international schools, 2-week schools, we have mini courses, we have programs and workshops, we have outreach activities, and these are the numbers for over the last, I guess, 4 years, 4.5 years. So these are some pictures of the schools. We've had schools in mathematical biology, effective field theory, string theory. So this is just for this year, 2016. So we had 8 schools, mathematical biology, effective field theory, string theory, applications biology. This was a 3-week school. So William Bialik, one of the people already mentioned by Fernando on the Scientific Council of ICTP came and lectured. Schools on climate modeling, this was in collaboration with ICTP, numerical relativity, Louise Lerner was one of the lecturers, he's on our council, dark matter, astrophysics, and laboratory platforms. Workshops in 2016. Workshops sometimes are planned well in advance, sometimes they're planned just a month in advance. Somebody says, I want to organize a workshop, can I do it? And of course we have space and depending on the budget we can do it. So we had 15 workshops, 3 have not yet occurred. So if you count these you'll get 11, and the symposium of course is also a workshop. So we had workshops in all different areas. Mostly theoretical physics, but of course we had econophysics, we had an entrepreneurship workshop here in collaboration with people from Araraquara and from the IOP in England. Mathematical physics, 3-point functions, etc. Outreach activities is something that you'll hear more about. This is in collaboration mostly with Perimeter Institute. Okay, so we had of course public lectures. This was the last public, I guess this was at our meeting in February. Luis Lerner, Matias Altariaga, Marcel Carena. This was a meeting in collaboration with the Art Institute, organized by Fabio Yocco. This was a new public lectures, but it's a little unorthodox. It's a little bit like the meeting, I guess it's called Pub of Science, or Pint of Science, thank you. So it's at this place near Avenida Paulista, which has laundry, but it also has food, it has drinks. And so people come the first Thursday every month to hear, not really a seminar, a presentation for 15 minutes, and then it's ask questions to the lecturer. So this is Ricardo Sturani, who was telling about LIGO. So of course, everybody was eager to hear about LIGO at the time, and it was a great success, and we do it every month. So other outreach activities, this was this Journey School. So these are the lecturers at the school. These are the undergraduate students. On Tuesday, the top scorer of this school will actually be here. For some unknown reason, he scored almost twice as much as everybody else on the exam. So it's somebody who's a protege in physics, and he'll be here tomorrow. You can see what he looks like. Okay, this is the prize. We've done this already for maybe 10 years, but now the prize is associated with this new collaboration with Perimeter. So the best students can go. This is for high school students. This is something essentially Pedro Vieira gave high school students, lectures to high school students. He'll talk about this later. This is a workshop for high school teachers that was done by two Perimeter organizers. So I remember Greg Dick's name. I don't remember at the moment the other person's name. So you'll hear more about that tomorrow at the ceremony for Perimeter. And actually the 10 best in quotes, students from this high school will come actually tomorrow. Okay, so these are workshops planned for 2017. You probably have the program or the poster in your kit, so you can read more about what we're doing in 2017 later. Okay, permanent jobs, it was already mentioned, we have the search committee. These are the members of the current search committee. So we filled 2 positions. We still have 3 positions to fill. We have these tenure track professors that they may fill positions. We'll also have 2 new tenure track positions when their positions finish. So in 2017, we'll start a new opening for these Simons FAPES fellowships, and we hope to encourage candidates to apply. Temporary job applications, we have the 12 postdocs. So of course, they will start in 2017, so the deadline is, I think, December 15th to apply. We also, of course, have applications whenever you want for short-term or long-term visits. All of these applications are through our webpage. We have these science journalism fellowships, so that's funded by FAPES. So if you know somebody who writes or who wants to write about science, they can apply. People for computer skills, these information technology. And of course, we have this master's fellowship that I already mentioned. So the final thing I want to talk about is your homework. So as I mentioned already, we need good proposals for activities over the next 5 years. So every year our scientific council meets and chooses activities. For the activities we will organize in 2018, they will choose the activities in February 2017, so at the beginning of next year. So you have some time to think about proposals until the end of the year. Okay, so they can be submitted online. You don't have to be an associate member, of course, to submit, but so if you know somebody that wants to organize something, please ask them to either write to me or submit. And the homework for you until Tuesday is to think of things you want us to do over the next 5 years. So we're going to the last session of this meeting. We'll have some more presentations about activities we've already organized, but after that you will split up into different groups depending on your sub-area, and you'll propose a list of activities that you would like us to do. So they can either be schools, workshops, programs, or they can be something else that we're not doing that you think would be nice. And on Wednesday, after your part is finished, our scientific council will meet, and of course they will not decide the proposals because that's only decided in February, but they will discuss them and see which ones make sense, which ones don't. Okay, so thank you very much for coming, and I hope you enjoy this symposium.
Thank you, Nathan. So I would like to invite again Professor Julio Cezar Durigan, the rector of UNESP, to deliver the final remarks and conclude.
Bom dia a todos mais uma vez. Desculpem, eu vou falar em português. Meu inglês não é bom e quando eu quero dizer coisas muito sérias, eu falo em português. E hoje é o dia de fazer isso. Quero inicialmente dizer que é uma honra muito grande, ao final do meu mandato, que termina agora no final do ano, participar desta cerimônia que marca o aniversário de 5 anos do ICTP-SAIFR, que é uma extensão do conceituado Centro de Física de Trieste, na Itália, o ICTP. Costumo dizer sempre que no desenvolvimento da ciência mundial há, inexoravelmente, o reconhecimento da competência pelos pares da área. Aproveitando aí um pouco da fala do Fernando, eu costumo dizer também que as nossas vidas são construídas nos sonhos e ratificadas pela interação profícua entre as pessoas que abraçam e querem realizar esse sonho. 2 exemplos podem ser citados nesse momento. Foi muito importante para o IFT entrar, ser absorvido pela Unesp, mas foi muito importante, fundamental para a Unesp ter gente tão alto gabarito e tão grande calibre no seu corpo. E o IFT representa isso para a Unesp. Outro sonho foi justamente a extensão do ICTP aqui na América do Sul, dentro da nossa universidade, como primeiro na América do Sul. Isso começou há 5 anos e hoje nós estamos vendo os resultados que produzimos. Uma instituição criada por um prêmio Nobel de Física, reconhecido em todo o mundo, como é o ICTP, com grandes pesquisadores, vislumbrou a possibilidade de apoiar e estender seu trabalho com um grupo de profissionais não menos competentes do IFT da Unesp em São Paulo. Essa acertada junção de cérebros exibe bons e significativos resultados na formação de novos estudiosos na área, no engrandecimento da pesquisa feita na área e na divulgação, muito interessante, inclusive, alguns aspectos feitos na área. Como nós vimos agora há pouco, a popularização, inclusive, dessa ciência. A agenda de eventos desenvolvidos no ano de 2016, que o Nathan passou para mim no início desse ano, por si só atesta o quão profícua foi a decisão do ICTP em expandir suas fronteiras com a semeadura em terra fértil. Em apenas 5 anos, com o apoio do próprio ICTP, da Unesp e o apoio fundamental da FAPESP, é possível vislumbrar futuro cada vez mais sólido e maior e reconhecido para este primeiro braço do ICTP na América do Sul. A física e a matemática, fundamentais no dia a dia de nossas vidas, são encorajadas nos mais jovens pelo trabalho abnegado de vários desses profissionais. Isto é algo fantástico. O terror e a aversão por estas áreas da ciência são trocados por um aprendizado ameno e ao mesmo tempo sofisticado, que constitui a base sólida para o crescimento e ratificação de amplos pilares para os comandantes da vida futura, que são os nossos jovens interessados na área. Com base na importância futura, eu diria que os físicos e matemáticos só terão forte concorrência por parte dos engenheiros agrônomos. Agora eu puxo a sardinha um pouquinho para o meu lado. que tratam do alimento para a vida em um mundo com população carente, crescente, de fortes desigualdades, com ações políticas recrimináveis e grandes abalos aos recursos ambientais. Confesso que o período pós-criação do ICTP-SAIFR, em 2011, não foi dos melhores em termos de arrecadação de CMS pelo Estado de São Paulo, com quedas constantes e cada vez mais graves nos últimos anos. Isso afetou o trabalho da Unesp e o maior apoio que gostaria de garantir a projetos como este. Felizmente, como vocês viram, e foi citado, nós tivemos, antes de 2011, uma situação muito melhor e um reitor bastante otimista, como era o professor Harry, eu era o vice-reitor na época, que deu o apoio à criação deste projeto. Infelizmente, ele não pôde estar aqui, mas eu gostaria também, como fez o Nathan, de lembrá-lo nesse momento. No entanto, o meu maior desejo neste momento é que os próximos administradores da universidade, e aí eu conclamo o Nathan e o Rogério, para que fiquem no pé deles, tenham consciência da importância e continuem a apoiar o trabalho dos brilhantes profissionais do IFT e da interação com esse time, dentro do que está previsto nas contrapartidas do convênio celebrado entre ambas as instituições. Mesmo que de maneira gradual e não com a velocidade que esperávamos, mas que continue esse apoio sólido da Unesp e, sobretudo, do ICTP e da FAPESP. Finalmente, não quero me estender muito, quero agradecer sinceramente ao Dr. Fernando Quevedo, Chair do Steering Committee, pelo seu trabalho de apoio às ideias e compreensão às dificuldades. Ao Dr. Carlos Henrique Brito Cruz, que reconhece a competência dos pesquisadores envolvidos com os projetos e os apoia pessoalmente e também por intermédio da FAPESP nos projetos apresentados. Aos doutores Jacó Pares e Juan Maldacena, que emprestam seus grandes prestígios na área desde o início da criação. Quero agradecer ao trabalho abnegado dos doutores Berkovits e Rogério Rosenfeld, desde o dia frio e chuvoso em que assinamos o acordo em Trieste. Valeu a pena. Quero agradecer a todos os palestrantes do exterior e do Brasil por sua participação neste evento de comemoração do 5º aniversário. E a todos os membros do Conselho Científico, por intermédio do seu chair, aqui presente, Dr. Peter Goddard. Parabéns a todos, também aos servidores técnico-administrativos e pesquisadores específicos do ICTP-SAIFR e todos aqueles que, direta ou indiretamente, participaram e colaboraram para o engrandecimento do ICTP-SAIFR. Desejo vida longa para esse projeto. Muito obrigado.
So I would like to just ask to thank the panel again. And I invite you for coffee and refreshments outside. Thank you.